Attention Austin musicians and music industry professionals. Austin Music Foundation is a nonprofit dedicated to strengthening and connecting the local music community with innovative programs that empower musicians, music industry professionals, and Austin music businesses within Austin's creative economy. Ever since the coronavirus has arrived and we've done social distancing and the office has been closed, Austin Music Foundation has found a way to still provide all of its services online. You can go there and get consultations online. You can have all your questions answered. Just go to austinmusicfoundation.org, all right? Hang in there.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
It's time for How Did I Get Here? And now here is your host,
All right, hello, I'm Johnny. I'm your host. Welcome to the show. I hope you guys have all had a good week. I hope that you're all healthy, safe, and sane wherever it is that you are. This is, once again, we're all sheltering in place. We're all staying at home. I hope that we're all being able to do that. If you have to have a job, that's one of the essential jobs. I hope that you're staying safe out there, and thank you for doing your job, because it's people like me don't go anywhere except for occasionally to a place like the grocery store, the liquor store, and I took my dog to the vet. That's really it. The only places I go are those. So that's it. That's it, baby. Occasionally I'll go to a Walgreens if I need something too. I don't know, man. I hope that you're handling it well. I'm handling it well. I've had my days where I've felt a little bit depressed. Last weekend, I talked about this on the show on Monday. I did feel a little bit depressed. I'm feeling like the more I keep myself busy, the better off I am. Like the more podcasts I book, that's why I started putting out 3 shows a week during this time, trying to make music all the time, working with Austin Music Foundation. We're actually doing work, it's all Zoom meetings and stuff right now where we're putting together the list of artists for next year's artist development program, or for this year's artist development program, which will be our 4th artist development program. We started in 2017, 2018, and 2019. So anyway, yeah, I've been able to keep myself busy, and when I do, I don't find myself getting depressed and sad. Been doing the live streams on Thursdays on my Johnny Gowdy Music Facebook page. That's been keeping me busy, and it's been fun, and I have a disco light now. So if you guys, Thursdays, 6 p.m., I do a little happy hour, do a little set, play songs that I've written, and do all kinds of stuff. I guess just kind of talk for 45 minutes and play. Going over to johnnygowdymusic.com on Facebook and like that. And hey, gang, or Johnny Gowdy Music on Facebook, sorry. Gang, if you want to get involved with this podcast a little bit more, you can follow it on Facebook. How Did I Get Here? It's the Facebook page. And I also, very quickly, I haven't been making these announcements lately, but gang, I don't know if you know this, but we're on YouTube now. The podcast is available on YouTube. You can find it. Look up How Did I Get Here? We're also available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Android Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Overcast, basically anywhere you find a podcast. 3 shows a week coming at you, man. Every other day at this point, except I take weekends off. I'm real excited about one. I'm a real fan of this band. I don't like to say it until it happens, and it's not coming out until May. But I'm real excited about what I'm doing this week. That's all I'm going to say. Also, gang, I do have to say that in this time, I've gotten turned on to a few people's music through the podcast. And a couple weeks ago, I went on How Did I Get Here Facebook page. I did a live stream where I did a little Q&A with people that listen to the show. And then I asked the people that were watching, like, hey, is there anyone you'd like to see on the show? And Jennifer LeDuc, who's a friend of mine and a big fan of music here in town, she sent me a guy, Abram Shook. So I went and listened to him. I checked out his album, his latest album, The Neon Machine. I flipped out, and I reached out to him. So today's guest is the amazingly talented Abram Shook. This Neon Machine, The Neon Machine, which is the name of his latest album, is a dreamy, soulful, funky electro-pop, kind of almost like with a Prince-esque kind of vibe on some of the tunes. It's fucking great. But he's an artist in motion, man, and he's constantly developing. He's constantly changing. While he did this record on his own because of more financial reasons, it cost money to make records and go to places and make them. And he found that he could just do this on his own at home and get some other guys to play a little bit of stuff on it. He has other records that he has like full bands on, Love at Low Speed, Landscape Dream, Sun Marquee. He's got a lot of great records. But this record, Neon Machine, absolutely fantastic, which is his latest one. He will be on 101X here in Austin on Sunday night on their Homegrown show. So I don't know exactly what time that starts, but tune in for that. He's also a musician that plays with a lot of other artists. He plays bass for Erica Wennerstrom from the Heartless Bastards. But I didn't know Abram, and I reached out, and we had this conversation on Zoom, and it was really great getting to know him. And, man, getting into his music has been amazing. I have been floored by this dude's songwriting, by his playing, by his singing. I love his voice. It's like he kind of reminds me of I don't know, Phoenix sometimes, which he said, yeah, he digs them. And I'm a huge fan of Phoenix, if you guys don't know that. I love the French band Phoenix. If you don't know them, go out there, check them out. But I'm really glad I got to meet Abram. I'm looking forward to meeting him someday in person. He's currently working on a new record. He's always working on new music. Abram Shook, you can find him on all the socials. But without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with the amazingly talented and extremely cool Abram Shook. Let's get down. How are you doing, first of all?
I'm good, man. Yeah.
Yeah?
Just, yeah, I've been doing the usual, I think, like a lot of everybody else, just trying to stay motivated, stay busy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. What are you doing to stay busy?
Well, I got a lot of tons of music stuff I'm working on from the creative side, but then I also have a lot of house projects that I'm doing. Ripped up a back deck, and I'm repurposing all the wood to build a new fence. So,
damn, look at you, man, getting into it.
Yeah.
Well,
it's one of those things.
Doing those tasks, I find, and also having sort of a thing to do every day keeps you sane, keeps you from turning on your mind turning on itself.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I got friends who don't really have those things, and I can tell it's starting to get to them, especially lately. You know.
Yeah,
the longer it goes on.
Yeah, there's only really so much TV you can watch, or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
even, you know, I think even like healthier things like reading books is great, but I mean, again, there's like only so much of that you can do, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I think if you have a project, it really, really helps, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if it's something that maybe takes multiple days, you know, so you can really see something through from start to finish. I mean, that's what I love about music, really, to be honest, is just the work part of it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you something. It really sounds like you do.
Oh,
like
cool.
Your music
Well,
reflects somebody who cares and is getting immense joy out of what they're doing.
Yeah. I think it was, you know, it's something that I was fortunate to find at a very young age. And, you know, as cheesy or tacky as it sounds, I mean, it does feel personally like a gift to me that someone gave me for my particular type of brain that I don't know what I would do if I didn't have it, because all I do is work on music, you know?
Yeah.
As a therapy, but also as like, I need some kind of puzzle to solve on a regular daily basis.
That's interesting, man. Or
Yeah.
what happens if you don't have that puzzle to solve?
I think I go crazy. I mean, like, you know, or like I drink too much,
Right.
you know, or like, like just kind of fall into maybe some unhealthy habits.
Sure.
You know?
It's that, yeah, I think that a lot of creative people have it. I have it. I'm also a musician. I don't know what all you know about me, but I'm also a musician and a creative person as well. And I find that the idle hands are the devil's work. Like that's when the shit goes wrong. when you start spinning out if you do that. Man,
for sure.
You are an incredible songwriter, an amazing singer. And what all are you playing on these records?
Oh, thanks, man. Let's see. Well, depending on the record, I play, like my last record, I played everything except for like a couple synth things here and there that I had a friend do. But yeah, it just depends on the record. I feel really fortunate. You know, I've been in Austin for a long time now, and I've like kind of developed a great community of friends. And so I feel like I've collected sort of like internalized data on everybody's styles and creativity of my close friends. And so I know if I'm writing something specific, I kind of know who would really excel at that particular role, like whether it's a drummer or, you know, maybe a bass player or something. Because I'm like, technically, I guess I'm a bass player at, you know, from the start of my music stuff. Well, actually, I did saxophone in college, but I rarely touch the saxophone anymore. But bass is probably my, like, you know, my predominant instrument. So, but like sometimes I just don't, I have other people play bass because I know that they will serve the role better than me, you know, like their playing fits
the
what
song.
I'm going for.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think when you trust close friends and you've played sort of with enough people for long enough, you start to really realize who's going to serve the song better, you know?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's a musically mature place to get to, where you don't think you can do everything anymore. You realize,
right.
that, oh, somebody else is probably better at me than this. I should have them do it to make my song better.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, there's definitely also like a level of like, I mean, there's a level of artistry in your music that's incredible, and there's incredible songcraft. You know, amazing songs, like even from Love at Low Speed, I think the song Quiet Side.
Yeah, the last tune, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a real fucking, you know, like ballad song. You know what I like? That's a really like well written song. It's beautiful.
Thanks,
and it also
man.
still has a level of like adventure and artistry. You're not like a cold, like a Diane Warren kind of like, you know, ballad writer for Celine Dion, but you definitely are writing on that same level with soul.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I guess I guess that's what I was saying earlier about the puzzle thing. Is like I feel like I'm always trying to you know, explore somewhere to go for me personally as like a musical creator, or like trying to go somewhere deeper with writing. It's a challenge, I guess, but then I don't want to go so far that I alienate like an audience. So there is a line for me.
Therein lies the craft, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The expression is the artistic part, and then putting it together in a way that's palatable for other people is definitely the craft part.
Right, exactly. I mean, I want to reach people. I mean, that's what most of us do this for. So, you know, there is a element of, but I also don't want to I really try hard to not do cliched things or overused things. Not because I don't think people still do that really well. I just don't think I do it well.
You mean do you mean lyrically?
I mean lyrically, and also just like songwriting, like tropes that like tend to, you know, like a Sam Smith or somebody, like, you know, I think he's got like a beautiful voice and he's an amazing songwriter, but you know, the songs are just like generic, like chord progressions that we've heard a million times, and he does it really well. What I'm saying is like, I can't do it well. I can't do a normal song well. I wish I could. I would do it more often. as another type of challenge. But I've tried and it doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound like me.
No, I totally understand that. Are you a daily writer? Like, do you get up and have like a routine of writing? I know that you like to solve a puzzle every day, but are you writing songs every day?
Yeah, every day. I have like the same routine every day. It's like a morning ritual.
What is that?
Well, I get up, I make a little breakfast, and then I drink mate, yerba mate.
Uh-huh.
But I do like the traditional style, which doesn't really mean anything except for that it's a slower way of drinking it, and there's like a thermos full, so you kind of go through this process, and basically it can take like, I don't know, maybe an hour or more to drink it, and in that time I'm writing. So it's like, I think if I just had like a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or some other thing, maybe I would go through it quicker, and then I wouldn't be able to sit down and like sit through a task like that. But because it's this like slow process, it's ritualized, then like it slows me down and like makes me like really focus. Plus, of course, it has like mental stimulant, like
Right.
things in it too. So
Right.
that helps with the focus. But yeah, and then I write for probably 2 hours, and then I go about my day. And usually the writing continues throughout the day. So if I maybe go outside for a little, I mean, sometimes I just write all day long, because I'm just in that mood. But yeah.
When you sit down to do this thing with your yerba mate, are you holding an instrument? Are you doing like morning pages or something like that?
Usually I have an instrument nearby.
Okay.
Sometimes I have like my, like whatever sessions I'm working on, because I do a ton, if not most of my recording at home. So I will have like sessions that I'm working on. So sometimes I'll open that up, and maybe I'm just like working on words, or maybe I'm working on a chord progression or something, or maybe just like a synth part for a song. It just kind of depends on what I'm feeling. But I try to like stay at it until the yerba mate is done. And then if I'm really in a flow, I'll stay longer. If I'm feeling like I'm stuck, then I'll get up and maybe I'll, go outside and work on the fence, or, do some household shit, something like that. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I heard some stuff like when I there's a lady named Jennifer LeDuc that was the one that I was doing like a live stream chat with people that listen to the show.
Yeah, she's great
on my Facebook page. Yeah, she is great. And so I was like, hey, any of you guys think I should have anyone on? She shot me your name. I looked you up because she's got good taste, I think. And,
yeah, she definitely does.
And she's out there. She sees a lot of shit. So she didn't send me like 25 names. She sent me one name. So I'm like, of all the people this woman goes and sees, she sent me this one dude. It must be awesome.
Oh,
So I went and listened to it, and I was blown away. And I picked up on some things like, and I'm just going to point them out real fast in these songs, mostly from your Love at Low Speed album.
Yeah,
and that's like the song Machinery. When I heard that before reading your bio, that said that you were into West African jams and Brazilian jams and stuff. When I heard that, I was like, man, this is like a fucking, like the guitar part, the groove on it, on that song Machinery, that is some African inspired shit.
Oh, cool. Great, man. I'm glad you picked up on it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that music. I'm a huge fan.
Good.
Also Brazilian music. And again, that song Quiet Side, just sort of the delivery of it to me reminded me of like a,
like that, a little bossa tune or something.
Yeah, like a bossa tune,
yeah.
like that what's that Wes Anderson movie where Brazilian dude plays all the Bowie songs?
Yeah, Life Aquatic.
Like that, but
Yeah.
just kind of had that kind of vibe to it.
Yeah,
which I thought was
totally
amazing. And then when I was checking out this new album, The Neon Machine, I was like, wow, there's some Prince vibe shit going on in there too. That's just unbelievable stuff.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man.
it. Yeah. I think it's like I've maybe you can I don't know, offer your own opinion on this, but like I talk to a lot of musicians friends about this thing where like I think there's two types of musicians, right? There's all types of musicians, but like within those categories, they sort of fall into these two broader categories. And basically, like, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying I've observed that there's these two different styles. One is writers who they write different, like maybe every album is different, or maybe on one album, song to song, it's different. Like they might have a sort of a pop tune and then like maybe a funk tune, and they're a little bit like they're kind of exploring multiple genres or something, but because they usually have something distinct, like their voice, that is the through line, so then they don't sound scattered, because like I do think it's cheesy if a band just has like way too many stylistic things, because it doesn't feel like they have a core or like a center.
Right.
But like somebody like the best example I could probably give, most famous, would be like somebody like Bowie or like Peter Gabriel fall into this category, where it's like album to album, song to song, exploring different styles, very different over the course of their whole career, but something about their voice and the way they write makes you know that it's still them, and it's not like, wait, who is this?
Right,
it's not
right.
like that. But then the other category is somebody who always writes in the same stylistic sound with like pinpoint precision, because their sound is so much a part of their personality, and they
like
never
Tom Petty or something.
Tom Petty, like the Stones, right? The Stones always sound the same, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that as like a bad thing. I'm saying like that's just, more or less they write in the same style. Or like modern stuff. Like I love that band Beach House. You know that band? Yeah. So it's like you put on a Beach House record, it sounds the same. I mean, they try like little differences within their world, which I think is great. And I can never do that. I've tried that before so many times, like to stick with like a sound palette, and like, I just never have. It's just something I don't have in my arsenal of tools. And I think that like I'm the other type of songwriter, where I think I just get on a whim of something, and that's why like the Neon Machine, the last record, sounds so different from Love at Low Speed, because I was just in a different headspace.
So different.
Yeah,
but you can tell it's still you. I mean, and even there's a through line. Your voice is very distinct. It's beautiful. It's really, really great.
Thank you.
There was another band that listening to it overall, I was like, do you ever listen to Phoenix?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I was there's like, there's definitely, he's got a very distinct voice that's in your same range.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
you have a very
great.
distinct and beautiful voice, and just such a great feeling for melody. You know what I mean?
Thanks.
Like and your chords, and I read that you had studied jazz, and there's definitely like do you do a majority of the keyboard stuff?
On the last record I did, yes, I did almost all of it.
And the guitar stuff?
Yeah, and
okay.
the guitar stuff.
So
yeah.
that stuff does even, it's informed by jazz. You go for more notes than like a regular rock dude or a soul dude go for.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that a lot of that comes from like trying to explore different melodies. For me, if the chord has more color, then I can find more ways to bounce around that chord versus like just a kind of more straightforward. I mean, I think most people would kind of agree with that. And that's not a good or bad thing. I mean, I know people who write very simply and beautiful things, but it's just hard for me. I need a little bit something more dense to find more interesting melodies for my ear.
Yeah, it's funny. I was looking at this song the other day, Manic Monday. You know what I'm talking about? Prince wrote it, and the Bangles.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
recorded it.
Bangles. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That I was kind of perplexed at like just sort of the chord structure of even a song that sounds as simple as Little Red Corvette. You know, the actual chords that are happening
Right.
are a little bit different than what you would think they are instinctively if you didn't know, broad chords and different kinds of chords.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Prince was a master at that.
A
right?
master at that,
You know?
but this one's fucking like A and D.
Yeah.
It was pretty over that. But I guess he did have a lot of songs like that, like Starfish and Coffee and like The Cross and stuff like that are just like straight up three chords in the truth.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you can do that. I mean, I have a song on the new record I'm working on. Like the new record that I'm working on is maybe back a little bit more swayed towards Love at Low Speed, but it's still different in its own right. But
the thing that I found distinctively different between Love at Low Speed and the Neon Machine is that that's a drummer on Love at Low Speed, right?
yeah, multiple different drummers. But yes,
but it's a drummer guy, and it's not an actual drummer person on the Neon Machine.
exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, I will say, a lot of that. Well, I love how both records turned out. I'm
Sure.
really proud of those records. But the Neon Machine was honestly that a lot of that was out of necessity because I'm broke like most people in my profession, and I couldn't. The Love at Low Speed was kind of like it was like I was on this kick to do. I'm trying to sum this up quickly. Let's see. So, you mentioned Brazilian music. I don't
Yeah.
know if you know the record Clube da Esquina. It's
No.
like, I kind of wrote about it in the bio for that record, but basically it's like a big touchstone record for me. And everything, a lot always goes back to that record for me. It's so beautiful. It's so well produced. It's just everything about it. But so I wanted to do my own version of that record. And that's why I Love It Low Speed had to be done in a certain way with like studio time and my first time getting like a string quartet and, just like I spent a decent amount of money on that record.
Yeah.
And then when, all was said and done, I mean, I love it. I mean, I wouldn't have done it any other way, but I definitely like broke the bank, so to speak,
Sure.
And then I wasn't, and I was still working back then too.
What were you doing for work?
I was just doing like restaurant work, so I could like funnel that money into the studio time and all that stuff. But then after that, I wasn't really working as much. I would just do like kind of odd jobs, pick up stuff, mostly just doing music. And I just knew that if I wanted to continue to record and put out records, I would have to find another way to do it because I just couldn't afford that type of studio experience anymore. So I really had to like up my game in my home studio. I mean, I'd always done recording at home, but like never drums. I had always gone to studio to do drums, and because that's kind of more complicated, and
Right.
and yeah, I just had to get in and dig in and like learn sequencing and learn the nitty gritty stuff that can be overwhelming and sometimes boring, but I had to force myself to do it so that I could move forward with putting out albums. Because otherwise, like we said in the beginning of the conversation, I would go crazy because not only do I need to write constantly, but I also need to like put stuff out,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
feel accomplished,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, long story short, that's why Neon Machine is the way it is, because I didn't go into a studio at all for that one. I just did everything at the house, and that was just out of necessity came that record.
Right.
And,
But
I'm
some-
also very proud of that record too. I
Yeah.
think I did, for my limitations, I think I did a pretty decent job,
Sometimes it's those limitations, you know what I mean? That set you up for genius. You gotta go inward.
Yeah, for sure.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think of things like just even like are you a Black Sabbath guy at all?
I mean, I can't say I'm like a Black Sabbath guy, but I did, I probably listened to him, especially when I was younger. I was into like heavier stuff.
Right. Well, their first record has a thing that the other ones don't have, and that's this sense of urgency because of their limitations,
Right.
of time. And there's an urgency that comes across. I don't know how it does, but in recordings like that, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. Or like, and maybe it's the other side. It's like part of the same point that you're making, but maybe it's also like an urgency. But you could also say there's like a relaxed quality because they can't care so much, or at least I'm noticing that lately. But
Right.
You can't care so much because you don't have the time. You have to let more things go.
Right.
And because of that, you obsess over it less. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I had a reverse experience. I made a record that I wrote songs and recorded them in my house, and got like a indie deal. And when I went to start doing stuff in a regular fashion, not in my room anymore, those songs lost their vibe, and those dudes put out the demo album. Like just mastered it, and we're like, fuck it, we'll just put it out like this. There's some out of tune shit, whatever, fuck it, it's awesome. And then the next record I did, I went into it already in a situation, and I ended up having Tosca, who are the people that did your strings as well, on there. Who wrote your charts and stuff? Did you do that? Are you one of those guys?
I wish. No, my longtime friend, collaborator, he played in my band. His name is Christopher Cox.
Okay.
He's now living kind of part-time in LA doing like film stuff. Like composing, but he did the strings. There's like a little bit here and there where we collaborated on a couple things, but I mean, especially the dense ones, he did all that stuff. Yeah, he's amazing. He's brilliant.
It's really interesting when someone can do that, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, he's also just like a talented songwriter. He and I had a side project that we put out an EP and a record under the name Fever Bones, where he does more of the singing and guitar playing, and I'm just the bass player, and I do a little bit of singing too.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. Is that on streaming services and stuff?
Yeah, it should be up on all the usual stuff. But yeah, he played in my band. He played bass in my band for years and years. We toured together. We're real close homies. So he's always one that I bounce ideas off of, and yeah, he's great.
Do you tour a lot? Did you tour a lot before the end of touring?
Yeah, right. I did a fair amount, especially the last 2 years. I've been playing bass for Erica Winterstrom. You know her?
Oh yeah.
The Heartless Bastards lady.
Then you know what, dude? I saw you play.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
I want to say, like, I can't remember when it was, last year or the year before, at what's the place across from the Empire? Barracuda.
Yeah, Barracuda.
Did you play outside with her there?
Yep. Played. I can't remember what that was for, but yeah, a Hot Luck Festival or
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been playing. I probably been playing with her for a little over a year and touring for her record. And then that sort of, we were supposed to do a tour opening for Andrew Bird before all the COVID stuff happened.
Ooh.
And that all got canceled, unfortunately, because I was really looking forward to that. But she's working on a new record too. So yeah, I don't know. Who knows what's going forward. But I've done sideman stuff for other people.
Who else have you played for?
Shearwater. I don't know if you know.
Oh
that
yeah,
band.
of course.
Yeah. So I did some touring with them a while back, and then another band called the Lolos, which aren't really around anymore, but we did some European stuff too. And yeah, just here and there, picked up touring gigs when I can.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, plus touring for my own stuff as well. Try to do each record. I think we've done at least 2 tours.
And when you tour, where do you go on those records for your own stuff?
Honestly, mostly we do the like the Midwest, like kind of up to Chicago route and back.
Okay.
We did some East Coast stuff last fall because we were opening for White Denim. So we did like a little run with them on the East Coast, and then we sort of routed back through the Midwest and did some stuff around there too. But I haven't really made it out west with my band because it's a little bit hard to get out there.
Yeah,
once you're out there, it's fine, but getting out there is a little tricky.
It's funny because I don't think people understand it. Like in the sort of like on the lower for lack of a better word, on the lower end of touring, on the poor man's tours.
Yeah, poor man's
the fact
tours,
that it
sure.
takes 20 hours to get to the next fucking city going that way, it makes it pretty hard. And then the drives there are way longer. Like once you can go from here to even like Dallas or Oklahoma City and then just start heading east. And then the longest drive you might have might be 3.5 hours or something.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes it easier.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I used to live out east in Boston lived there for about 3 years, and touring out there, or even not, I wouldn't even call it touring, just doing like a weekend run is so easy. You can hit cities in, an hour or two, you're in another city. It's great. Some of what I missed about living out there.
Yeah. So you're from the West Coast though, right? You're from California?
Yeah. I mean, I was born in the Midwest, but
okay. Where in the Midwest?
I grew up in Southern Illinois, tiny little town. And then I lived in Indianapolis for a little bit when I was like in grade school. And then we moved to California.
Where in California?
In Santa Cruz.
Oh yeah.
Like,
no shit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's a great town. Great town to grow up in.
That's I've been there a few times. It's a good it's kind of, it has this kind of like old hippies went there and settled vibe.
Yeah.
Is
totally.
that your parents' hippies?
Not really. I mean, my parents divorced when I was real young, but my mom, I would say she's a quasi hippie,
And she was the one who you lived out there with?
Yeah, she took us out there.
What did she do?
She was a family lawyer for a while. Did like divorce and child support, child custody kind of stuff for a while. And then she had a lot of health problems, like kind of in her late life. And now she kind of runs she lives in Hawaii. She's lived in Hawaii for years now, probably since like 2000, I think. And she has like a little tiny back unit that she runs as like an Airbnb, and that's kind of her income now.
That's cool, man. Sometimes you gotta, get back to basics to get to paradise.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, little known fact, my mom is actually the one who started the Women's March. What
do you mean? What Women's March?
Like, you remember the Women's March, like for when they marched on Washington for like against Trump? My mom like got the ball rolling on all that. It's kind of crazy.
No shit?
Yeah.
How did she do that?
She just started like, it was one of those funny stories of like viral things where she started a Facebook page like the day after he got elected. She was super depressed, and she was just like, we should march on Washington. And she had she wrote a little thing about it, and then it was like she woke up and there were like 100 what do you call it, like new not like
shares,
followers or whatever,
yeah,
and then that turned into 1,000 and then thousands, and then it turned into a whole movement. It's kind of wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does she wear the hats?
Yeah, she has. She's kind of she kind of stepped away from it because, of course, like anything else, it gets co-opted by people, especially younger people who are really have like kind of a lot of their own agenda, and really are kind of up to just go constantly. And she's older, and she's living out there in Hawaii, which is not easy to get around and do press conferences or talks or anything. So she's sort of stepped away from it because it was just too much. Plus, of course, you get all the vitriol from all the trolls that,
Oh my God, I can only imagine. It's funny that you say that, Abram. My dad this morning, he is a Fox News handy. Trump is the guy. And he told me he got a coronavirus test that came back negative, and I was like, well, when did you take the test? And he's like, last Wednesday. And I was like, well, you realize like you could have contracted it between then and now, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that did not fly with him.
Why?
He screamed at me, called me a Democrat, because it was logical, I guess. I feel like there's this anti-logic movement going on.
Yeah.
An anti-fact, anti-science, anti-logic movement.
But did he have like any kind of argument as to why he couldn't?
No, he screamed at me, told me I was a Democrat, and told me I'm not joking to go fuck myself, and hung up on me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Terrible.
That's that's where, and it's not just right wing people. There's left people. It's kind of gotten so cruel and mean, and sort of the example set by everyone. Like when people will watch like a 24-hour news thing, no one's telling you what's actually happening in the world. It's like 6 people on there just screaming at each other with different opinions about stuff, and no one, you know what I mean? And so therefore totally. People think they have the right to, like my dad literally treated me like a caller on Rush Limbaugh today.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like a guy that disagreed with the guy on the radio.
Yeah.
But I think it's because he's grown so accustomed to hearing that sort of thing happen. And I think a lot of people have. Anyway, I think that's a crazy thing, but I bet you're very proud of your mom. You should be.
Yeah.
It's a
pretty, cool. Yeah, I mean, it was a trip, when it all happened. Of course, I was a little worried for her too because of what you were just talking about, the backlash and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's a crazy world, man. I mean, actually, the last record, the Neon Machine, is really all about that kind of stuff where it's like, we're living in unprecedented times, and I tried to basically write these subversive relationship songs, but really the love interest in every song is actually the United States. Like if you peel back like the layers, it's like basically I'm just talking about my relationship with the US as if it were a marriage or something, and how I feel like I've come to the end of a long, hard relationship, and I don't know how to get out of it.
It's too late. It's too late to call the protective services or something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're out there in Santa Cruz. When did you start playing instruments, and why?
I started playing sax when I was in grade school. My mom just kind of was like, okay, you gotta
play an instrument.
You gotta play an instrument.
Right.
What do you want to play? And I picked the sax. I don't know why I picked the sax, but I did. And then, but then I fell in love with it. I loved it and pursued it through high school, played in jazz band. And then, but then, of course, all my friends were playing in garage bands, and I just the sax didn't really fit in unless you were playing ska music or something,
right.
And I didn't really want to play ska music. And I remember I picked up the drums, started playing drums, and that was great. But then I went to this party. I still remember the story. I went to this Halloween party, and another drummer friend of mine was there, and it was one of those high school parties where they just had instruments set up, and there wasn't a band playing. It was just people were picking up stuff and jamming,
Yeah.
And but there were a couple guitarists and me and this other drummer, but there was no bass player, but there was a bass and everything there. And I was like, well, I'll pick it up. Since we don't have a bass player, I'll do it, And yeah, that was end of story. I somehow connected with that instrument, and I just never put it down after that. And I ended up going to college for a while, still studying jazz saxophone. But then I think this happens to a lot of like people that get into songwriting, is that there just became like a divergence where it was like, okay, saxophone and jazz became work for me, and like playing guitar or bass or writing songs became fun. And that's when I kind of stopped wanting to do professional studies of jazz saxophone. I mean that, and the financial, like, well, this is never going to make me any money. I don't know why I'm throwing money away in college doing this, you know?
Well, there's that thing where like a classical musician, like the ladies in Tosca, they can't just jam. You can't just be like, hey man, this shit's in E, and then they start jamming. Like, they live in this world where they work within they get the framework, and they're not allowed to color outside the lines of it. Then jazz, it seems like when you're learning jazz, you're playing the same tunes that everyone else is handed from the real book or whatever. Right. And they're encouraging you to color outside the lines, but you get to a point, I think, where you want to be the guy that makes the drawing. You know what I mean? Where you're like, wait, I want to be in. I don't want to have to color something that's already been done.
Well, and I think too, like I could have maybe turned to writing or composing, but I think because when you're playing a non-chordal instrument, especially in jazz, something like saxophone, trumpet, then you really need other people to play. I mean, you
fill out the rest,
practice by yourself, or you could put on a record and play to it, but like there comes a point where it's just not that fun, at least for me. I mean, I'm sure people would argue with me all day and say like, no, I love playing saxophone by myself. I mean, those people exist. I'm sure they do. But what I'm saying is like, with guitar or piano, any chordal instrument, you can just sit down and play by yourself, and like it sounds great. You don't need anybody else, and that was attractive to me, I think, at that era of my life. So I just kind of walked away from jazz and from saxophone, and and then I just followed sort of the songwriting muse around. I mean, it took me a long time to come. I really never liked my voice. I never wanted to sing, but I always found myself in these bands. Back then I was playing like much more, I was exclusively on bass. I wasn't really playing guitar, but I was playing like headier, like proggy kind of math music, like maybe something like King Crimson-y kind of stuff, and we'd always wind up in these bands with great players, but nobody wanted to sing or could sing, or the parts were complicated, so it's hard to get vocal melodies. So I always would be this default, like, well, somebody's got to sing, I guess I'll sing. And that's how it started. But I never liked it. And then I moved from Santa Cruz to Portland, and then Portland to Boston. And then in Boston is when I really started picking up guitar and trying to like write songs that were maybe more quote unquote normal, less obscure,
What else were you doing in Boston?
That's it, man. Just playing music and working in restaurants. That was just like, I just wanted to go out. I had an opportunity to get out there. A friend of mine, or actually it was like it was an acquaintance that I met. And she had this real cheap opportunity to go live out there. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. I'll go check out the East Coast for a while. And I stayed out there for about 3 years. And then kind of very similar on a whim, I moved to Austin because I was getting real sick of the winters out there. Yeah. And I had started playing bass for this band. I was going to move at the end of summer. It was like, early summer, and I was going to move back to San Francisco, be closer to the Bay Area. I started playing bass with this band that my band out there in Boston had played with, and they were putting out a record, and their bass player quit like a week before the release, and they asked if I could fill in, and then that turned into me playing a bunch of shows around Boston with them for the summer. And then at the end of summer, they're like, hey, we're moving to Austin. You want to like come with us and like kind of continue on? And I was sort of like, yeah, that sounds cool. Like, I'll come there for like 6 months. It's halfway between here and San Francisco. And then I never left. That band broke up very quick. Like, I think we lasted maybe another 6 months or something. But yeah.
And you just stayed. What did you fall into a scene here?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Several. I feel like multiple scenes over the years that have grown and solidified in ways that I could never imagine. And honestly, I never found in any other city that I lived in. You know, that's the big attraction for me to stay here. Even though it's changing so much these days, my community is still super strong. So,
what is your community? Is it like the pop community?
It's like a little bit of the leftover indie scene that was here when I moved here in 2005. There was just like, that was really right before Mohawk started. And there was, I don't know if you know Rosa Madriz, but she was running this like kind of booking / production thing on her own. And yeah, just everything was still very small back then.
Right,
and,
right.
All the bands played together all the time. And those people have since gone on to other bands, but we're all still tight.
Were the Heartless Bastards part of that for you?
No, they didn't move here till a little later. I didn't actually meet Erica really until a couple of years ago. But no, it was like nobody like big, just bands, you know, like I don't know if you know who Danny Reich is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was playing in a band called the Lemurs back
Yeah,
then.
yeah. Yeah, I remember the Lemurs.
Yeah, so it was like, well, we always joke that for some reason there were all these L bands in 2005. So there was, my band was called The Laughing. There was a band called Loxley, which is now called Royal Forest. They're called Royal Forest. They're still around, actually. Okay. Then there was Lowline Caller, and then there was the Lemurs. And I don't know how we all got L word bands, but we were also all Rosa's bands. Like, she booked us. So we all just like hung out. But, you know, through that, I met Danny, and like Danny has helped. I mean, he mixed my last record. I've worked with him countless times. He's one of my best
mixed
friends.
the Neon Machine?
Yeah, he mixed Neon Machine.
He's awesome, man. He was on the show a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like sometime in the first couple of years of it.
He's outstanding. He's a brilliant mind. He's crazy. But so yeah, just leftovers from that era of Austin are still in my life. I mean, the guy who played in Loxley, now called Royal Forest, he's in my band. He plays in my live band. You know, we've been friends since 2005. It's great.
That's rad, man.
Yeah.
Where do you play now? Like, what are the places you play?
We don't play that much locally, to be honest. We just try to save up for tours, and then we'll play like special things. So like we played the Eberly when they were doing those sunset sessions.
Yeah.
We'll look for like opening gigs locally. Like we did a show at the Barracuda opening for that band Yacht. I think that was cool. We try to make the local shows a little bit more special. I mean, I'll be honest, you know, the downside of Austin is that they just don't really pay bands very well, and I can't afford to pay my band if I don't get paid the right kind of fee, you know? Right.
It's one of those catch-22s because it's difficult when you're in a position that you're in and that I'm in, as opposed to like probably one of your prog bands in we don't have bands anymore. We have a band behind us, but we have to pay them to be there, as opposed to like nobody makes money at this gig or everybody makes $10 at this gig. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or we put it back in the kitty because everyone has jobs and we're trying to make a record. That whole idea of a band, once you get past a certain age, just doesn't work anymore.
No, and especially in Austin where like everybody is really hustling and trying hard to just be creative, you know, and be musicians. So they're playing in a bunch of different bands, just scraping together whatever money they can from, you know, probably way too many gigs, you know, and to be honest, but you're exactly right. I mean, yeah, what do you know, I decided a long time ago that, you know, people need to be paid for what they do, even if they're like willing to, I don't know, like if they're like, hey, it's cool, man, you know, like I'm still like, nah, dude, I gotta like pay you something. Like it's just like this is if we don't respect our own craft, no one will,
Right.
And I can't always pay great. I mean, and honestly, that's why I'd have to turn down some gigs, which I would like to play, because in
Right.
some ways there's this weird thing. I don't know if you've noticed, but there is a thing in Austin where it's like, there's so many bands and so many shows that if you don't kind of keep your foot in the door and your name out there, you sort of like, you get lost in the shuffle. Whereas like if you were in some other city that just didn't have this kind of scene, you could probably play a show twice a year and it would be great. But like, it's hard to do that in Austin because you kind of there's just a constant wave of new bands and new press.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So I find it a weird, hard line to ride, but I'm working it out. I'm doing my thing,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I like work with the Austin Music Foundation. I do this podcast, so I put out 2 shows a week, and I have since like 2011. So I have a revolving door of people coming through and people saying like, oh, you haven't heard these people, you haven't seen these people. I don't remember someone mentioning you, but this scene is also vast enough that you can just miss people completely.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, I've had the same experience where you're like, you go to see a show because your friend's playing and you see the band before them and you're like, where did this band come from? These guys are great,
Right. I mean,
so, yeah.
I would have been definitely listening to your stuff since your first album of Sun Marquee, if I heard this.
Yeah. It's just one of those quirks about Austin that's like, love it or hate it. It is there,
Right. I think that with anything also, like, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 51, and there used to be like a mainstream, like even if you go back further than when I was a certain age, but like, the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, everybody saw that. You know what I mean? Everybody alive saw that, and that if something was very popular, you couldn't avoid it. And now very few things cross all the lines because now we have so many choices that we just tune into our own channel of stuff that we are familiar with or already like.
Right.
And you may not cross the stream and get into someone else's, get some new stuff going.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why like probably shows like yours are important, or just like, curated sort of playlists and just people listening to other people and trying to like expand their palette. It's still important, It's still a new way to discover music. I mean, my friends and I are always passing around new shit that we're listening to, or, shit to check out or something like that. And so it's just, I like to stay, I don't know about you, but I mean, I like to stay relevant in my own musical knowledge, and by that it doesn't have to be like a new band, like it doesn't have to be a band from right now. It can be a band from 10 years 20 years ago, but just new stuff, new input.
Right. And as you get older, you sort of have the things that you've collected along the way that are your favorite things and your go-to things, and eventually some people don't make room for any more new stuff, and a lot of starting this podcast when I did was simply to have an exercise where I was constantly exposing myself to something new, regardless of how I felt about it, and taking it in. That's what I mean? To try and keep an open mind, because I think as you get older, you get that, hey, get off my lawn vibe. You know what I mean? And people nowadays, they don't know what they're doing,
Right, yeah.
There's tons of people my age, friends of mine that are like peers of mine that are like, there's no good music coming out. I'm like, dude, you just put out a record last year, so your music is no good because it comes out now? Like, that's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. Or they're just stuck like listening to stuff that they listened to in high school, and it's like, well, I could find you like 10 other bands that would fit this category, that are also cool, but you have to like give it a chance, because music it's two-way street, right? You got to be an active participant as a listener. You can't just, I mean, that's why we've gotten to in some pop realm, we've gotten to like a dumbing down of music because people don't want something that they have to think about or engage with for too long. They just want quick satisfaction. So that's why we're in somewhat of the state that we're in, and people need to, I mean, that's also like why I write the kind of music, because I want something that's like rewards people who maybe give it more than just one half a listen and then skip because it's like it doesn't have a hook in the first 20 seconds or something, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I just
You still got some great hooks, bro.
Oh well, thanks. Yeah, I try to, you know, you got to pepper those in there too. You gotta have those as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I love pop music. I mean, I will say it to the end. I mean, I'm a huge pop fan. Love it.
What
But,
are you listening to right now? That's getting you?
A big one for me lately is I really like that new. Do you know Faye Webster?
No.
Oh man, she's great. Her new record is outstanding. I like this dude. He's called Benny Sings. I don't know if you ever heard him, but oh man, you gotta check out his music. His newest is cool too.
Benny Sings.
I mean, yeah, all his stuff is great, but his newest one, and then he's got a record called Art, which is just fabulous. It's kind of in the world of like, you know, somewhere between Hall & Oates and Steely Dan. It's like AM pop, like just beautiful, dancey, fun. He's got a quirky voice. It's great. It's great shit.
I came around to I mean, obviously, when I was a kid, like Steely Dan was around. My mom and her people were hip. She hung out with a lot of musicians and stuff when I was a little kid. But people were into Steely Dan, and I didn't mind some of the songs when I was a kid. But then when I started playing, I felt like there was no edges on Steely Dan, and I at some point I took a stand against music that I didn't think had the edges I needed.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly.
And then I'm in this band Skyrocket. That's a cover band, and we learned a lot of songs. And a few years ago, like 8 years ago or something, we started doing a couple of Steely Dan songs and learning those songs, and then just kind of like going down the little rabbit hole of Steely Dan and hearing those songs that I had vowed to dislike. All of a sudden, I realized, man, those guys are really good, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a polarizing band, right? Like a lot of people are like, they're just like, no thanks. I mean, and I'm not like hugely influenced by them. I know the hits, you know, like that's about it. I've never been one to like dig deep. I never liked them. I think there's people who love them for their just shreddiness, you know?
Right.
But for me, it's always, I mean, same with something like Hall & Oates, which we just mentioned. It's like, it's always about like, wow, you guys are using like really cool chord movements that like you're tricking the audience into thinking it's simple, but it's actually quite complicated. And then you also add the challenge of finding a hooky, catchy melody on top of this. So it's like, you know, you've just sort of fooled everybody into thinking this is just a simple pop song. But like, yeah, from a listener, from a non-musician point, it is that. And then from a music standpoint, you can look at it and go like, wow, this is really actually quite intriguing, you know?
Yeah.
So I like some of that stuff, like that has the, you know, smoothed off edges, I guess, as you would say. I mean, honestly, I think I'm a little bit there right now with my new record where it's like lazy Sunday mellow vibes, man. I don't know, you know, and my last record had a little bit of edge here and there, like with some synth stuff and some, you know, some of that like West African guitar stuff. But this record, I think, is gonna be less of that, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just an age thing or if that's just like, oh, this is where I'm at, you know. I like to just follow the creative muse where it goes. I mean, if the next record is like a hard, edgy record, then that's what it will be. I can't imagine that's where I would go next, but you know, I'm open to it.
What's the record you're making now?
It's really cool. It's like it kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier, where I had done. So do you know who Eric Wofford is? Yeah. Yeah, he runs that Cacophony Studios over there. So he's another dude that I met when I first moved to town, and like we just became fast friends. I've worked on countless records over at his studio, both mine and other projects. And anyway, we just been friends, and he had I do some like very light remodeling construction type work.
Okay.
Not professionally, but I did some of that. I lived up in Seattle for like a brief time, and I did that with like a contractor up there and learned a bunch. And so Eric offered me some trade, where I helped him at his house with some stuff, and yeah, he was like, "I'll give you some studio time," and but I only got 2 days in the studio, which is a lot. You can do a lot in 2 days, but I decided, since I only had 2 days, kind of like what you and I were talking about earlier, where it's like I can't afford to go back. I was like, I'm just going to get as much as I can, and especially like all the foundational stuff done in those 2 days. And we did it. And like, I think there are some like, there's like a looseness and like, maybe that's what I was talking about earlier. There's like a relaxed quality, because I'm like, yeah, that is what it is. Like, I can't overthink it, because we can't really go back. I can do more shit at my house. I mean, I need to do the vocals and all that kind of shit, but I could do that at home. But it just feels great, man. I mean,
That's
it's
awesome.
Just like, yeah, it's like, it feels really relaxed. It feels as it was meant to be. And like, it doesn't feel like it needs a lot more stuff. Whereas I think in the past, I've always had that, like, you go in and you do drums and bass, and then you bring home those tracks, and then you're like, man, now I got to do guitars, and then I got to move to keyboards, and then, overdubs, and like, it's just, it feels like more daunting. Whereas this is just like, man, honestly, like, other than vocals, which it just has like weird half scratch vocals on it right now, like, I would put it out like it is, which is, I've never said that before about anything. I've always been pretty obsessive about making something the right way, where, yeah, this was just a good alchemy of the right people playing, and Eric kind of knowing the sound that I wanted. And and I think too, this, the songs are always crucial, right? And they're
Hell
just
yeah,
the
man.
right songs for the right feel or something. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm really excited about it.
Well, good, man. When do you have any idea when you'd be putting that out?
I'm probably thinking fall. I mean, so much stuff is up in the air with everything right now, but I'm thinking I'll be done with it within the month. I'll just do vocals here at the house and then get it mixed. And so maybe fall. Maybe,
Well, man,
maybe a single in the summer. I don't know, man. We'll see.
I would love to have you back on the show. I'd love to have you over and sit down and talk face to face. You're, I'm really glad that Jennifer sent me that suggestion. I was very excited to hear your music. I've shared it with friends already and been like, dude, check this shit out. And people are like,
cool.
Holy shit, thank you. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
Hey, right on, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank
you're
you so much.
fantastic, and I hope I get to see you play live sometime. And is there anything I'm missing?
No, I the only thing I'll say is on Sunday, John from 101X is doing this cool thing, because a lot of artists don't have music coming out. So he's been doing this show where he's asking bands for like B-sides or unreleased stuff, or demos, and he's doing a show of that. And I got one coming out on Sunday that's actually a song that never got released from the second record, Landscape Dream. It was like from that era. And it's kind of cool because I actually worked on that song with Eric. So it's like a full circle, we're back to working together again. And
what time is that show on?
I'll have to look that up for you and send you a text. I'm not exactly sure, but
do you know what it's called?
I don't know what he calls his show, honestly. But do you know John Laird from Side One Track One, 101X?
I don't know.
Oh man, he's a good dude to know. Homegrown Live.
Homegrown Live. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Homegrown. No, Homegrown Live, I think, is the shows.
Right. Yeah. 101X Homegrown.
Okay.
I don't know what time it's at, but I can find out.
People can Google that, baby.
So that's cool. And then I'm gonna put together an album of all my unreleased stuff and put that out soon-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be released. People can follow you on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, I got all the usual stuff, and then all the Spotify and iTunes stuff as well. So
yeah. Well, dude,
Yeah, man.
it's been great talking to you, and I'm a huge fan. I'm really glad we got to meet, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person.
Yeah, it's great to connect, and tell Jennifer I said thanks if you see her before I do.
I definitely will, man.
All right, man.
Thanks
Take
for doing
care.
the show, buddy.
Yeah.
The song is just a word they made.
That was Abram Shook, man. What a great conversation. Man, you guys need to get out there and check him out. His latest record, The Neon Machine, available now, wherever it is that you stream and download your jams. Also, his other records are up there. What a great, great, talented dude. If you're listening to the radio Sunday night, he'll be on 101X Homegrown. Still not sure what time exactly that starts. But he's also, what an interesting dude. What a nice dude. Great talking to him. Too bad we couldn't meet in person. I'm looking forward to the day that we can. Get out there, find Abram Shook on the social medias, on the Spotifys, on the places where you stream and download your jams. And don't forget, when you're out there streaming and downloading the jams of the great Abram Shook, don't forget that you can subscribe to this podcast wherever it is that you do your podcasting or your podcast listening. If you do it on Spotify, we're there. You do it on YouTube, we're there. You do it on Stitcher, we're there. Apple Podcasts, we're there. New shows. Right now, I'm dropping 3 shows a week. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays shows. 3 shows a week. Me talking to great artists. Like the great Abram Shook, man. Right? What an amazing artist. I hope you guys have a good weekend. Hang in there. Stay indoors. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Look out for one another. Still holding it in. We're flattening the curve, people. Let's do it. Let's get down.
Is this all you've got for me?